Hello, thank you for joining. Wish you all a very happy new year. Um, it's been 3 weeks since we've last met. So if you remember, we started talking about lean in the previous webinar. We'll continue doing that. So these are the three agenda items that we have today. First one is a flashcard, as usual. We'll talk about escape defects for about 10 minutes. Then we will go on with part two of lean. We'll be looking at the value stream mapping and analysis. We'll spend most of our time here. Okay. And if then time permits, I'll show you a tool called Find Bugs, which is a very cool tool that I use on a day-to-day basis, and my team does too. So these are the three agenda items. And towards the very end, we'll go through some of the sample questions. Okay, so let's start with the flashcard, escape defects. Escape defects is a very, very important metric. Okay, so it's used to, it's another way of objectively understanding the quality of a product. Okay, so I know we are used to talking in terms of bugs, but when we are talking in agile terms, we like to talk more in terms of defects rather than bugs, because bugs has a different connotation altogether. Okay, also we have to keep in mind that there's no bug-free software. Okay, we want to achieve very high superior quality, but at any given time there will be defects in any product. Okay, the measurement is based on what kind of standards you're following to allow those defects to exist. Okay. Now coming back to escape defects, by definition, if a defect creation date is after the version of release date, then that defect is an escape defect. What it means is that you are trying to release a product, and if you find a defect in that product after the release has happened, that means that that defect will be termed as escape defect. Okay, what it means is that you should have caught it early on, but you did not. Okay. Also, important thing to keep in mind in Agile is you are the role of QA is not to find bugs. Okay, it is to prevent them. This is a very important change in the mindset. Okay, I have seen seasoned uh, engineering team, agile teams struggle with this concept, especially the testers and the QA. I have seen QA directors or QA QA leads rewarding testers who find more and more bugs. Okay, that is a very wrong mindset to have. QA is there to prevent bugs. Okay, in Agile, if this defect is found, that is by definition an escape defect, it reflects bad on the whole team, also the QA. Okay, which is in the sense that it should have been caught early on. Okay, so there are in this definition we are using release date as our line, after which a defect will be termed as escape defect. However, there are teams like myself where we draw that line in the sprint itself. Like if you are working on a story and you have closed that story, and later on, even though you haven't released, but you find a defect pertaining to that story, that defect is termed as escape defect because it actually escaped from the story. Okay, it should have been caught in the process of closing that story. So There are different ways of handling escape defects in Agile when we are working in iterative mode. One way is that you create that defect, as a story, special type of story, and uh, make it go back to the product backlog where it gets prioritized by the product owner, and based on the priority, it gets incorporated. Another way is that you can reopen the story from where it escaped, and just rework in as a part of that story. Okay, which is not the most elegant way. Uh, Another way is that you make that defect. You can, if you're doing more enhancements on the same feature piece, and there are more stories in your backlog that are unfinished, you can put this defect as an acceptance criteria in those stories. Okay, so you can handle this as a part of another story. Okay, so it depends on what the teams feel comfortable with. Overall, you want to see a downward trend in the escape uh, escape defect pattern or trend. So this graph is showing over. So this is time on the x-axis, and on the y-axis you have the defects. So overall, you want to see a downward trend. Okay, that is a good reflection on QA that they are doing their job very well. Okay, also they're so they are kind of preventing the bugs from escaping into the product. Okay, so overall you see a downward trend. It is not a very steep downward trend, even in the best of the teams, because you're building more and more features, so there's more and more to test. But overall, you do not want to see an upward trend. So sudden spike from here to here in this graph is very, very bad. Okay, it is a very bad reflection on the team. Okay, all right. So this is about escape defects and how to handle them. How uh, how to measure is also important. If you're using tools like Jira, you can have you can have fields that will tell you, uh, from which version on that in which version was the defect identified, and then you'll have to find out in which version it may have escaped from. Okay, so if there's a difference in that in the two versions, that means it is a true escape defect, and you want to measure it from there. Okay, there are tools within Jira that allow you to query based on the fixed version and the identified version in which that defect was identified. So you can write a query in Jira, and it'll give you a list of all the bugs or all the defects that were identified. Okay, and then you can objectively plot them in a graph. Okay, all right. So let's continue on value stream mapping. Okay, so just a very quick recap before we actually start talking about value stream mapping. We started talking about lean. Okay, how the lean cycle is useful in identifying where we are doing wasteful effort and how to reduce that. Okay, so which is the center and the core of the whole lean process. Okay, if you remember that cycle where you find identify value, do a value stream mapping. Okay, so it was going um, in this form. Okay, so there was a circle in which first you identify value. Okay, second you do value stream mapping. Third, you do analysis, value stream analysis. Four, you establish pull, and fifth is that you improve. Okay, so this was a lean cycle, if you remember from last webinar. Now, here is an example on how we can create a value stream mapping. This is a very high level example of looking at any process. So let's say um, you want to have you want to eat cake. Okay, what is what are the steps that are involved in that whole process. Okay, so first of all, you do a cake selection. Okay, you go to a bakery and you do cake selection. Sorry, just one. Then you go to a bakery counter, okay, to the bakers. You make a payment. You unpack and slice that cake, and then you eat it with your friend. Okay, so that is a simple process. Okay, the reason I took this example, it's because it's a good high level. It'll give you a good high level understanding of what we are trying to do here. So you have what you do is for every step in this whole process flow or the workflow, you create a value add, a value add level and a non value add level. Okay, so cake selection is definitely a value add to what you're trying to achieve. Your goal is to, you know, eat cake with your friend. Okay, so cake selection is important. You want to know which cake you want to eat. Okay, and then you have to go to the bakery counter. Okay, uh, to order that cake. Okay, if that's taking you 4 minutes, that 4 minutes really is of no value. It's not really adding any value toward the goal that you're trying to achieve. When you're at the bakery counter and you tell the baker which cake you want to have, and that takes about 2 minutes for you to convey that, that is a value add. Okay, once you have ordered your cake to the baker, by the time you reach the payment register, it takes you 6 minutes. Okay, maybe there's a line there. Okay, so if it takes you 6 minutes to reach to the payment register, that those 6 minutes are non-value add. Okay, and then you make a payment that is value add. It takes about 2 minutes to make the payment, and then you decide to head back home, which takes you about 15 minutes, which is of which is not a value add, okay, towards your goal. Once you reach your home, you unpack and slice. That is a value add. Okay, and then maybe you have to wait for your friend to arrive before you can eat that cake. Okay, that is a non-value add. And finally, you actually your friend arrives and you eat the cake and you're happy. Okay, and that takes you about 5 minutes. So that is a value add. Now it's a very simplistic view of a very simple process, but you can understand and appreciate how we are trying to measure a value add and non-value add in this whole process. Now, the total cycle time here is the summation of value add and non-value add, and the efficiency of this whole process is whatever time that is adding value divided by the total cycle time. Okay, so this is the formula for finding out the efficiency. So the total cycle time in this example is everything summated here: 1 minute, 4 minute, 2 minutes, so on. So it comes to 42 minutes. Okay, whereas the value add summation is 1 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 5. Okay, just 12 minutes. Okay, so your efficiency of the whole process is 29%. Now your goal is to push this efficiency to a high number. That is your goal. That is a goal of lean, and that is a goal of value stream analysis that we are also going to look at shortly. All right, so this is a very simplistic and a high level view on what the value stream mapping is indeed. Okay, any questions on this so far before we look at a more practical software engineering or engineering based example? Oh, there were some questions on escape defect already. uh, Yes. So the question is that uh, about handling escape defects. So escape, like I was saying, that um, you can put the escape defects. You can put that defect back in the backlog so that it can be prioritized based on that. You can have a type of a story. Okay, so a defect may be a special type of a story, just like you can have analysis as a special type of a story. Okay, not all the stories are purely functional in nature. Okay, so you may want to tag certain stories to be of a certain type. Okay, no question on value stream mappings. Okay, all right. So what is a goal overall of doing value stream mapping? And these goals, you can appreciate that they are very close to the reducing waste goals of the whole lean methodology in general. Okay, so I'll just read out each one of these. So the first one is focus on the value to the customer. All right, so I'll just go back to the previous example one more time. Who would be creating this value stream map? Okay, what would be the, who would have who would have a better intention of creating this value stream map? It's probably going to be the baker. Okay, because they want to make sure that their customers who are coming, they are being given the most value. Okay, they don't have to spend 4 minutes in finding the baker, or finding the person who they can place the order to. They don't want to make their customers wait 6 minutes before making a payment once they have made the order. Okay, so a baker may want to create such value stream map. Okay, so just coming back to the goal, the number one goal of creating a value stream map is, focus on the value to the customer. What does the customer value? Reduce waste. Okay, which is very important goal, and we have looked at lean. There are 7 types of wastes that we discussed last time. All right, so you you're doing value stream mapping so that you can identify where you're actually spending wasteful time or effort or dollars. Goal number 3 is, you know design simple and clear form of communication. Right, so the um, the elegance lies in the simplicity of the whole process. Okay, you want to make sure that the whole workflow or the whole value stream is simple, and it has very simple and clear communication points. Okay, the moment it starts getting complicated, too many communication channels, uh, it there's too much that can go wrong. Okay, so you want to stick to a very simple design and clear form of communication. That is another goal of value stream mapping. Okay. Number 4 is instill quality in each step of process. Okay, so now that you have identified those nodes on which you are actually doing the hard work in that whole process, you want to instill quality in the good work that you're doing in every single node, right? So, you know, you can do that only if you have a value stream map, only if you know which steps are there. Number 5, align resources to meet demand or demands. So, very simple. Okay, you have to make sure that those workflow nodes or steps that you have identified, you have the right people or right systems or right resources that are working there to make sure that that step and that the work on that node is being done at top quality. Number 6, improve flow of customer information and data. Okay, so not only you want to focus on the value to the customer, but you also want to make sure that that value is flowing very efficiently to the customer. Okay, whether it is value can be on different forms. It can be in form of information, data, etc. So you want to make sure that not only your focus, your whole process is customer value focused, it is also very efficient. Number 7, ensure caregivers have what they need when they need it to provide the services. All right. So the caregivers uh, are are the resources who are actually working on making those actions happen on the nodes. Okay, on those steps. Okay, so in order to make sure that those resources, they have what they need to accomplish their task at the right time in the right fashion. Number 8, increase interdisciplinary understanding of roles and processes of providing care. Okay, this is kind of a high level goal to make sure that the roles are very clearly defined on who does what, and also there is understanding in the whole process, in the resources that are involved in that whole process, they have a very clear understanding of their roles too. Okay, which is when they'll be motivated and they'll be able to provide the best quality in what they're doing. Okay, so these are the uh, goals of doing value stream mapping. Okay, okay. Now let's look at an actual, you know, industry level example. Okay, this is again, many things here may be not exactly aligned with with practical execution, but it's there to for all of us to understand, how this value stream mapping can, how we can do value stream analysis from the map that we have created. Okay, so in this example, let's say there's a business unit here. Okay, and this is a traditional project flow. Let's say this is what you have been working in a uh, traditional project following traditional project management practices, and this is how the your value stream map would looks like. Okay, so on the left hand side you are a business unit. Okay, and on the right hand side here are the users. Okay, so who are actually consuming what you're producing, or who are actually paying for what you're producing. So the way you would start working towards creating such product for which the customers are actually going to pay for it is you'll create a wish list first. Okay, which is a value add. VA stands for value add here, and VA stands for non-value add. So you have a wish list. Okay, creating that wish list may not be a very difficult task. Okay, let's say you're spending one day in creating that wish list. Okay, now from that wish list, let's say you created 100 functional points. Okay, so 100 FP that you see. Functional point is a very traditional way of thinking in terms of functionality. So from that wish list, let's say you created 100 functional point uh, value that the users you think would need. Okay, now in that process of converting those wish list items into those 100 functional point values, to the point it can reach the right people who are ready to take the decision on that project, whether to fund it or not, it takes 6 months. Okay. So this becomes a non-value add. Okay. Whatever time that is spent between creating a wish list and finding funding for that implementation is a non-value add. Okay. Once you have found the right people who are ready to fund it, that whole process doesn't take a long time. Let's say 0 days. Okay. In reality, it may take 1 or 2 days. Okay, with contract and paperwork and all that. But let's say that you found the right people who are actually going to approve this project, provide funding. It's going to be very quick. Okay. So you take forward these 100 functional points to a requirements and analysis stage. All right. So whatever time that you spend in between, from the time that you have an approval to the time you're able to start doing requirement analysis in detail, that time is non-value add. Okay. So 1 month here is not a value add. Now that you're doing requirement analysis, it is a true value add. Okay. So you get 6 weeks of true value in that product. Okay. Because you're doing the hard work of doing the analysis and creating requirement documents, or BRDs, or functional requirement, or FRDs. Once you do that, notice that how these 100 functional points, they became 150 functional points. The reason for that is, those of you who are aware of what we call as gold plating, or we start adding features that we think customer wants but customer doesn't want. Okay, so what it is trying to depict in this example is this happens a lot in a traditional flow, in a traditional project flow. Okay, you started off understanding very clearly what customer wants, but along the way you start gold plating, you start implementing or planning for things that are not really needed. Okay, so these 100 functional points, they become 150 functional points. And by the time you're able to create a development team, or identify the right resources, or even start the development, okay, in the sense that you have to, you find people who understands the requirement very clearly, those specifications are understood. Okay, it takes about 6 months. Okay, all that lapse is a non-value add. Okay. Now, once you start doing development, you spend about 3 months in doing the hardcore development work and testing work. You do all that in 3 months. Okay, that is a time well spent. Okay, so which is why it is a value add. Once you finish that, let's say you created a 10,000 source line of codes. Okay, LOCs. Okay. That is the tangible artifact that is produced at the end of this development and testing cycle. Okay. Now, once this is produced, by the time you can stage it on a platform, okay, you'll have to find a staging environment, you can find the right resources who can do the deployment, hardware, software, skills. By the time that it you start staging it, you spend 2 months. Okay, so you produce 10,000 lines of code, but it took you 2 months to bring it to a point where it can be staged. Okay, again, remember, I mean, these figures, these time figures, they may differ from different industries, different organization, but the point that is trying to make is that there's a lapse in between the code, once the code is produced, and by the time it reaches staging. So by the time you're ready to deploy it on staging, you spend 2 months. Okay, and then once you start deploying it, uh, by the skilled people, you spend about a week's time to actually get that whole environment up and running with your 10,000 line of code. Okay, that 1 week is a value add time. Once you finish staging, okay, you have a release bundle. Okay, this release bundle again has to be delivered in a form that can be consumed by the end consumers, by the end users or your customers. Okay, so you have to deploy it in a production environment, or ship it to the customers. Okay, and whatever that is time that is lapsed in between is again a non-value add. In this example, it is 3 weeks. You have the code bundle, but you don't have the production environment ready or set up. And then you spend about a day in setting up. Once you have identified all the resources, right people, skills, you spend about a day. Okay, which is a value add time. And now it is ready to be consumed by the users. Right. So this is your value stream map. Okay, just like we looked at that bakery example. Okay, this is more of a industrial, how it works in the industrial, at the enterprise industry level. The formula still remains the same. The efficiency is the value add days divided by the total days. All right. So in this case, you'll see 97 days as a value add. It's because it's 6 weeks. It is treating Saturday, Sundays off, so it's taking 5 working days in a week. So 5 times 6, like that. Same thing goes for months. Okay, so you'll see a little odd figures here in the days. Okay, but the value add days here are 97, which is a summation of all the value add, all these humps. So 1 plus 6 weeks plus 3 months plus 1 week, 1 day. Okay, so it is a summation of that. And 315 is a total time that you spend. So everything, summation of value add and non-value add. So your efficiency is pretty low, as you can see. Okay, it's 30%. And also there's a throughput. Throughput is how much value you produced, or how much uh, what you delivered in the total time. Okay, so you delivered 100 functional points. Okay, these are the 100 functional points that the customer really needed. Though you produced 150 functional points, you cannot use that in your throughput formula, because you have to be customer centric. Even if those 50 functional points were missing, your customer would be equally happy as they are today. So your throughput really is what you were supposed to deliver. Okay, so 100 functional points in 315 days. Okay, that is your throughput. Okay, now from this point, what we do is, now that we have the map, we can try and remove the waste that we are doing. Okay, remember the goals of value stream map. Make ourselves customer centric, focus on the needs of the customer, improve the flow of the value to the customer, and all that good stuff. Okay, so let's go to the next slide and see how it works in a lean or value stream map uh, environment. Same thing, you have the same business unit. Okay, you have the same customers. Okay, you're trying to produce the same thing, but we have made changes to the whole value stream map, and now we can objectively look at what is our, how we have, what is the improvement that we have made in efficiency. Okay, so look at that. So let's say you're doing iteration planning. Okay, so this is doing an iterative development here. Okay, so from this block to this block, it is an iteration. It is there are 6 iterations that we are doing. So same business unit, you start with iteration planning. Okay, that is a value add. Okay, and from that iteration planning, you produce you decide that you're going to commit for 45 story points. Okay, so you're talking about in story points, in terms of story points, not functional points as you are doing in the traditional flow. So then you do the actual implementation, or this is your true sprint. Okay, this is your true sprint where you're doing designing, coding, testing, and everything. And it is a 9-day sprint. Okay, this is what you decided, that this is conducive to the domain that you're working in, and you spend 9 days in doing that hard work. Okay, once you have produced these 45 points, you spend about a day in showing it to the customer. Okay, before you can find the customer who can look at what you have produced in this iteration and run some acceptance tests. Okay, so I should actually correct this. Okay, so the 6 iterations are over here, does not include the acceptance testing. Okay. So this is what is the 6 iteration. These are the 2 blocks that fall under the 6 iterations. So once you have produced 45 story points, in the first iteration, you'll do the same thing, do the iteration planning, design code, produce another 45 points. And after 6 iterations, you find the customer who's going to run some acceptance tests. Okay, so there are various ways of this could have been done. Sometimes you want to show the stories that you have completed. You can do a demo of that, which is, if you remember, the acceptance test driven development, ACTD is ATDD, that cycle. If you're doing that, then you'll run acceptance test as soon as the stories are complete, or at the end of every sprint. Okay, if you're not doing that, you can still continue working in an iterative mode and do an acceptance testing once you have finished all the iterations and you are ready to do a release. Okay, which is what is happening here. So this acceptance testing, you spend about 3 weeks. Okay, which is a value add. And once you have finished that acceptance testing, you produce 270 points. Okay, story points. Before it can go to the next stage, there's a lapse of about 3 months, which is a non-value add. So whatever that is needed, training material, etc., whatever that is needed to be created, you spend 3 weeks in doing that, which is time well spent. Once that is done, it takes another 2 weeks before it is ready to be put in a staging environment. Okay, this distribute release is something similar to staging environment that we looked at before. Okay, so but the important thing here is that we are still transferring 270 story points. Okay, whatever time that has elapsed is a non-value add. But once you start doing the distribution of the release, that is a value add. Okay, so 1 week is a value add here. And then you take the same 270 story points forward, but there was a lapse of 2 weeks before it can be deployed in a production kind of environment. So this is a non-value add. And then finally deploy in 1 week, and it is ready to be consumed by the true customers. Okay, in this case, if you look at the efficiency, we'll use the same formula and we'll look at the efficiency. So Value add days, this is the summation of value add days, okay, which is 49.5 days. And you divide it by the total days, which is summation of everything, value add and non-value add. So 81 days. So you have improved your efficiency to 61% from 30%, okay, which is a massive improvement. Imagine at an enterprise level, what would it translate to in terms of bottom line of an enterprise if you were to introduce this level of efficiency. So you have doubled the efficiency of the whole cycle, okay, and that is possible only because you did a value stream mapping and analysis, and you made effort to to refine those nodes on which the actual work was being done. You refined the whole process. You identified where you're wasting your effort and how you can improve it. And the throughput in this case will be measured in terms of story points. Okay, so 270 story points in 81 days. Okay, remember these are the 270 story points that customers actually need. Okay, you did not add any gold plating to this. Okay, so this is your value stream mapping analysis and it how you're able to achieve your end goal by doing this. Any questions on lean in general or value stream mapping analysis, etc.? I see there are quite a few questions here. Okay, is it possible to remove 50? Okay, so question on the traditional flow about jumping from 100 functional points to 150 functional points. Is there a way to avoid that? I mean, it's really, I mean, it's the way requirements are analyzed and documented and conveyed. The 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 devil lies in that detail. Okay, so there are, there's it's very easy to add things that are not needed just because you're following this form. You're following the form of BRDs and FRDs. So once you have added those 150 functional, added those extra 50 functional points, it's very hard to identify them later on. Okay, it's a problem in this node, okay, which is you're trying to solve by moving away from traditional flow into a more agile, lean form of flow. Okay. Another question is about the efficiency formula. Yeah, so I know these days they look like that they are odd because we are talking in terms of in this example the value add non-value add is talking in terms of months and weeks, but it's only taking working days, 5 working days in a week into account, which is why you see this odd number. The question on the efficiency number, 30% is not. How do you assess? Okay. So there's no hard and fast rule in saying that 30% is bad or good. Okay, but in general, whenever you're talking in terms of efficiency, you want to reach an efficiency of 100%. Okay, higher is better. Okay, so it's possible that you had maybe 6 months ago your efficiency was 10% and you have brought it up 30%, which is still good. Okay, you're headed in the right direction. What we are trying to do here is we want to push that number out as much as possible. Okay, one way of doing that is doing this value stream mapping. eh, you know Start using lean practices, agile practices into your process, and that is going to improve your efficiency further, just like what we have seen just now. Okay, another question on chartering and funding. Yeah, this is, uh, the process of approval. Okay, when you have created a business case, whether that business case get approved or not, this is that step. Okay. All right. So let's look at some of the sample questions. I wanted to show find bugs, but I don't think we have ample time left for it. There are some sample questions that we want to go through. They are going to further uh, elaborate, some more of these lean principles around value stream. Okay. Read the sample question. There are three of them. Read this one yourself and send me your answer either in the chat or the questions box. Chat box is better. Okay, a lot of answers are coming in. Some of you still haven't answered. Okay, very good. Almost all of you answered correctly. Okay, the correct answer is C. Okay, deriving more money from the stakeholder is not a goal of value stream mapping. Okay, very good. Next one. Okay, so I got a very mixed response. Some of you got this answer right, but I've got a very mixed response here. So the correct answer here is B. So let's look at each of these options. Okay, so the question is that, a QA engineer found a bug right before the product release. What are we supposed to do here? Okay, so first of all, the first answer, the QA engineer should be rewarded for finding this bug, is clearly not true. If you remember the defect, the goal of agile methodology, the QA's role is not to find bugs, to prevent them. Okay, so it, finding a bug so late in the release cycle is a bad reflection on the testing. Option B, besides besides the effort of fixing the bug, an effort should be made to identify from where and why this defect escaped. Okay, so this is very important. Okay, try to find out what caused this defect to escape. Only then you'll be able to plug that gap. Right. Option number C, product release should be postponed until the bug is fixed, is kind of a vague statement, because you don't know what the severity of that bug is, whether it is a showstopper bug or just something that uh, that the customers would be able to live with. Remember, there's no software that is bug free. Okay, so there'll always be some bug. So because it hasn't qualified what is the severity of the bug, can't really choose this option. And the last option that is given, the engineering organization should put processes in place to identify all bugs in a separate QA cycle. I see few of you send that answer, but remember, if you are well versed in understanding the agile values and value practices, okay, there's no wall between dev and QA. Okay, there's no separate QA cycle. Okay, everything is in the story life cycle. Okay, you do development, you do designing, you do testing, you do review, you do everything in that story's life cycle. There's no separate QA cycle or performance cycle. Okay, so the correct answer here is B. Any questions on these or concerns on the answer of this question? Yes, one of you mentioned that it depends on the severity of the bug. So C is kind of a vague choice here. Okay. Last question before we wind up. Okay. I have a lot of responses coming in, and only a few of you have got it right. The correct answer here is D. So a lot of you picked the choice A, analyze the existing processes. But uh, if you pay attention to the lean, um, or the value stream mapping, the whole process of the lean process, that cycle, that 5 step cycle that we have talked about, before you can do any kind of analysis, you have to do a mapping. You have to you must create a value stream map. Okay, so even though analyze the existing processes seems correct at the high level, but in terms of what steps need to be taken, there's a choice D, which is, create a value stream map of the core processes. So unless you create that map, you cannot really go to the analysis cycle. Okay, so D, first create the map and then do the analysis. Okay, making suggestion based on the best practices in the hospital industry is very vague and does not seem like a right choice. Find out the throughput of the process cycles is also vague, not really going to help alleviate the problem. Okay. D comes after analyzing. No. So when you're creating a value stream map, when you're doing when you're creating the value stream map, at that time you're discovering the process. You're not really analyzing the process. The analysis means that you are looking at the nodes, at the task, at the actions that are taken, that are being taken at those nodes in the process. Okay, so the map is really going to create, it's really going to give you a high level view on which you can perform your analysis. Okay, any more concerns on the question or the answer to this question? Okay, all right, so just ready to wind up. You know how to reach me. You can reach me on LinkedIn, Twitter, Gmail. There's Agile training coming up that gives you 21 PDUs for the certification. It's on 25th and 26th Jan. It's of $299 value. Those of you who want to register, you can go to this website, CertSchool.com, Agile Classes Webinar, or just go to CertSchool.com and you'll find your way through it there. And the next free webinar is going to be in 2 weeks from now. Okay, so those of you who are interested in this 21 PDUs to take the PMI Agile certification can go to the website, register for it. It's going to be 8 hours each day, so 16 hours total on Saturday and Sunday. It's going to be of great value on your resume and to your knowledge. Okay, thank you very much. The recording of this session will end up on YouTube as always. Thank you. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.